Well, hello. Welcome to a sketch with me. We're going to be drawing the underdrawing sketch, the stuff before the line art. We're going to be drawing the stuff before the line art for my webcomic, Fortune's Fancy. And I will talk about my process, my thought process, as well as what's happening in this chapter and where I've been. It's been a while. It has been a while. I think it's been about 6 months since my last video. And there's a few reasons for that. The first reason was that where my desk was very close to the air conditioner, which was very loud. And since the summer was rather warm, that meant the air conditioner was running almost continuously. And if there was a nice enough day we didn't need the air conditioner, we were probably running the attic fan, which kind of drew air out of the house and kept the temperature down. And the attic fan was super loud. But either way, no matter how I positioned my microphone or how I rearranged my desk or any technology that I put on top of my audio, you could hear the air conditioner running pretty prominently in the background. So I kind of took a break from YouTube. I was also busy with summer courses. I was going to go to school for rec therapy. I already have a bachelor's degree and 2 required classes. So I needed to do an internship, and I think there were like 6 classes that I needed to take, and then I could take the big fancy test and become certified. I was really excited too, because recreational therapy, although a lot of times it's movement based and closer to things you would find in PE, playing games and whatnot, it also encompasses music, art, games in general, not just physical ones, and a lot of other ways to process emotions and things that are going on around us. And I had an internship lined up, a paid internship, which I think was a pretty cool deal, but it also kept me very busy. So that's part of why I didn't post. You may be wondering, well, Jamie, you're referring to all of this in the past tense. That's kind of weird. Yes. So I also got divorced. That was an adventure. I didn't see it coming. I mean, I do now, in retrospect, see a lot of issues and a lot of issues that weren't going to resolve. But I held on. I held on for dear life. I definitely don't want to spend all this time, ragging on my husband or giving any juicy details, because there's really not. He projected a lot of issues on me and blamed a lot of our marital issues on my mental health. It's a two-way street. So in August, I had to drop out of school and quit my job and move in with my mom and brother, who live about 2 hours away. So here I am in a different part of the rural Midwest, living a different life, but that's okay. A lot of things are better. In a lot of ways, I was mourning that I had to give up the career of going into recreational therapy. However, when I moved down here, one of the first jobs that I happened to find, I also got, which was as an artist instructor at Painting with a Twist, which is, for me, pretty close to ideal. It is a franchise where people come in, they can get alcoholic beverages, and in 2 hours, I teach them how to create a painting. I think it's really fun. I fully believe that art should be accessible to everyone. So I have classes of adults, and sometimes they haven't painted since elementary school, which could be 10 years ago, it could be 20 years ago. I've had some guests who were much older who were very, very excited and very pleased to be there. And it gives me an opportunity to be on stage, be the center of attention, be able to entertain, which is something I really enjoy doing. I also need to get out of the house. I'm a people person. I hate it. I hate to be around people for too long, but I do need to be around people. So that checks a lot of my boxes. I get to do art, I get to entertain, I get to be with people, but not too long. And I don't have to clean bathrooms. So that's always a plus. I do have to wash a lot of brushes. That is a downside. Also, with moving to a new area, it's kind of hard to make friends. And even though I grew up here, this is my childhood home, a lot of people that I talked to in high school have moved. They've moved out of the area. And a lot of people that I went to college with even have moved on and live closer to bigger areas, more metropolitan areas. So having a job that is centered around art has also given me the opportunity to be friends with other artists, which has been really cool. When I worked at Michael's, which is a craft store, a lot of my friends were, or coworkers who became friends, were into crafts and art, and we could talk about those things. But Michael's is a retail store, so there were people that I worked with that didn't really do a lot of arts and crafts. My manager, who I think was a wonderful boss, actually didn't do any of the crafty or artsy things. But she was an amazing boss, and she knew a lot of the product. She knew enough of the basics that if a customer asked for something, she could help them find it. All that to say, I've gained some new friends by working at a job that is around art. Friends who are also artists, which has been really cool, really interesting to talk shop with them. I have a music degree, so most of my friends, especially college friends, are music majors and teaching music and out in the field and doing all sorts of things that way. It is kind of cool to see your friends from college off doing the adulty things. Another good thing that has happened from the divorce and moving out, my mental health has gotten a lot better. My depression is down, my anxiety is down. I've actually been able to reduce some of my anxiety medication with my psychiatrist, of course. This isn't just me messing with medication. A lot of my negative traits or intense traits or little isms that get worse when my mental health is worse have calmed down. I still do the thing. I don't know if it's ADHD. I don't know if it's bipolar. I don't know if it's the stress and pressure of having been in a relationship or a combination of those factors. I think it's a combination. For a long time, there was a pressure on me to be financially stable, which is kind of hard. I have an issue with job hopping. And this pressure kind of created the need that I was going to be an artist because that checked all the boxes that a lot of jobs I've had won't check. And I don't have to go back to school in order to achieve that. It does create a lot of anxiety and a lot of tension because instead of thinking, I'm going to draw this because I enjoy it, or I'm going to paint this in order to learn something, everything becomes, I'm going to create this so it can go in my store. I'm going to create this so I can sell it. I want to create a video so that more people can watch my content so I can monetize YouTube and make a living that way. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And art no longer becomes fun when you have that pressure. Having worked at Painting with a Twist, even though I'm not teaching classes that span over the course of a semester or a year, I have noticed that when people come in with this expectation that their painting is going to be perfect, it's going to be pristine, it's going to look exactly like mine, and halfway through it doesn't, they tend to go down the death spiral. A lot of times they give up. They say it's beyond hope. This painting is awful. It's just not going to work out. They aren't doing anything productive or positive for the painting. They're just kind of slapping paint and moving the brush haphazardly because it's obvious in their body language that they have given up. They don't believe this painting can be saved. And that pressure applies when we're trying to be artists professionally. Is this going to sell? Is this going to be popular? Are people going to see this? And then art no longer becomes something enjoyable, something fun, something I'm passionate about. It becomes something I have to do. On top of that, there's also a sense of disappointment when I can't stay consistent with something, when I can't constantly, or more appropriately, when I can't consistently upload to YouTube, when I'm not making a video every week, then I'm sad. Or when I can't get anyone to hire me as a photographer. There are a lot of things I'm like, I need to be consistent and I need to niche down on the specific thing in order for it to work. And of course it doesn't work out for a lot of reasons. And I think it would be wonderful to be an artist full time. I have a lot of limitations, in part with fibromyalgia. It's very easy for me to be achy, especially if I'm on my feet all day. It's hard to have a full-time job and maintain good health and not be sore, let alone mental health issues where I can get stressed out really easy and then everything falls apart. Painting with a Twist is only part-time, so, there's some limitations there, but for now, my needs are met. So, in a lot of ways, being divorced has changed a lot of things. In part, I mourn that I had built a life. I was part of the community. I would go to functions. I was part of the family. All of those things. And trying to find a career that would work both in the area and with my limitations. I thought I had figured things out. Instead, I kind of got the rug pulled out from under me. But that's life. That's life. These things happen. It sucks, but we'll get up and try again. People will say I'm resilient, and I mean, what other choice do I have? If I lay down and die, they don't tell you how long it takes to just lay down and die. You have to be hungry and bored for a very long time. And I get hangry. So I get up and I'm resilient out of spite and hunger. And then I eat something and I'm fine. I go along. I move on. So this, we should probably talk about the art now that we've caught up on all of Jamie's life. So this chapter of Fortune's Fancy is chapter 11. in which we see Damien. I wrote this chapter well before I was going through a divorce. This chapter has existed for a while. And in the previous chapter, Mira attends a dance and meets a young man named Damien. They're kind of sweet on each other. They're having a good time. And in this chapter, we see Damien with his friends, and he tells Mira, "Don't make me look dumb in front of my friends," trying to coerce her to go along with them to pester Drexel, who is the main character. Drexel is not liked in the town of Northwick, because of course he isn't. So I felt like I was kind of losing my steam and my stamina with creating Fortune's Fancy, but then I thought to myself, this chapter is very important. Not because it moves the plot along or anything, but because Mira kind of faces a situation where someone is taking advantage of her meekness, and she has to summon the courage to say, no, I'm not going to be treated like this. I'm not going to be in an abusive relationship. Which, how Mira handles it will be in the future, of course. This is just the, this is not a good place to be. And I imagine that if more more people read my webcomic, I would get a comment along the lines of, why doesn't she just leave? Why doesn't she just, dump his ass and move along? Because it's hard. Mira doesn't have a lot of stakes in this relationship, so it's easier to resolve this kind of sub-arc within a few chapters. But it's hard to be in a relationship with someone for a long time and leave everything. Your house, your community, perhaps your job. Or perhaps you have a job and you can keep your job, but you don't make enough by yourself to be able to afford, say, rent if you were to get a new place. Or you don't have enough saved up to do the first month and last month rent before you get into a place or buy a house or all of those things. There's so many factors that go into whether or not someone can leave a relationship. And not to say that my relationship was abusive. I don't think that's an accurate description. However, I did stay in a relationship that wasn't going anywhere for probably far longer than I should have, because I didn't think there was an out. And also because I made a commitment. You marry someone, you promise to be with them and be there for them and help them and, be a partner. I was hoping that maybe through enough therapy and medication, I could change everything about my partner and we'd be fine. It's an unrealistic expectation. And it's easy from the outside looking in to see this and say, why doesn't Mira leave? So I thought to myself, I need to do this chapter. This is the sketching form of it. I've gone from about 4 pages per episode to 2 pages per episode so that I can produce it faster or at least more often. I'm hoping that I can do an episode every other week of 2 pages, whereas before I was doing about 4 pages. Because there are 4 people on this panel, it took a hot second. Actually, the last couple sets of pages took a really long time because I messed with the 3D models. I realized that a lot of my proportions were getting squirrely. So I edited out the part where I bring in the model and I pose it, but Clip Studio Paint has 3D models. I use one in this panel for Nate. Is that Nate? Yes. I use one for Nate. He's pointing and laughing, and I couldn't quite get his hand to look like he was pointing and laughing. So I brought in a 3D model. Now, my preference is that I would want to use a reference and draw from reference rather than tracing over a 3D model. However, I run into the problem that I know what I want in a scene and I know what I want things to look like, where I want the characters to be facing and what angle I want to have the camera at. And sometimes when you go on Pinterest and you start searching for certain things, it gets difficult to find the exact reference that would fit in what you're drawing. So in the case of Nate pointing and laughing, I would have to find someone pointing directly at me with their fingers in the way that I wanted to draw his hand. When I draw Drexel's hands, I tend to look for poses closer to those like Renaissance paintings where their hands are in a very soft, artistic sort of pose. However, in this one, he is just pointing forward. It would probably be fairly simple to find a reference of a hand pointing directly at me, but at the same time, I've gone in with things that I thought would be simple to find, and either I don't know the right word to search for them, or I find what I'm looking for and I don't find the right camera angle. So I may be able to find someone pointing and laughing, but rather than pointing at the camera, they're in a profile position, and so their hand is pointing a different direction. So rather than spending that time on Pinterest or in a Google search trying to narrow down the right words to find the reference image I need, I bring in a 3-dimensional model and trace some of the poses that I need. Now, I don't think having a 3-dimensional model is substitute for learning the fundamentals of drawing and drawing anatomy. I do spend time outside of making my webcomic, drawing from life, drawing various poses, understanding how anatomy functions. I feel like tracing a model comes with the caveat that you still need to learn anatomy, you still need to learn to use reference. But I think it has a place. I think there is a place for it. It is one of the tools that is available to you as a digital artist, especially in Clip Studio. I know there's other programs that let you mess with 3D models that you could bring in to Clip Studio to use. Bring into any painting software to use. So, as I finish up this final panel, that is the conclusion of this video. Let me know in the comments down below in the doobly-doo if you prefer more art-focused talks, if you prefer more story time, more chatty videos. I'm experimenting with what kind of content I put out. I feel like there are already a lot of really good tutorials out there that it's hard to walk into the art space and offer something new. I'm also hesitant to step back in to art critiques, in part because the Reddit forum that I frequent likes to disappear and then reappear. It's kind of weird. But mostly I don't want it to be misconstrued as I'm fixing art. I don't have the absolute right answer. I don't think there is a singular right answer in art. Links to everything will be down below. if you want to read my webcomic, see what happens to Mira. And I'll catch you in the next one.